So joining us, we have with us the Chief Product Officer of CitrusAd. Can we have that round of applause one more time? Please help me welcome Mr. John Chaplin.
Afternoon, everyone. Assume you had a great lunch. Before I get started, when I was preparing this talk, I was trying to think of analogies that I could use to, better understand, the progress of retail media and its steps to success. So, coming from Australia and heading to India, I naturally thought, we should look into the successes of our, cricket teams and maybe use that as a bit of an analogy. Unfortunately, over the last 2 weeks, I kind of threw that idea out and, we're going to go on a different tact. But let's look at the background. Let's look at the background of where we've been with retail media and where we are now. If you think about retail media in the past, it was largely the large conglomerates, the Amazons, the Walmarts, the Targets. It was for a select few, technology was expensive, and it was very limited. We look at retail media now, and it's of all different sizes, niche product offerings, a lot lower barrier to entry into the market, and it's for the many. However, with that low barrier to entry, selecting the right technology is so much more important. If we look at the landscape, there is, and the key here is, this has to work for all the actors that are playing in the ecosystem, and it needs to work for all of them. So it's funny when you hear technology companies present, and they often forget that there's an actual customer involved. They look at what's good for the retailer, they look at what's good for the brand, but they forget about the customer. And we take the opposite approach. We feel that if you put the customer at the center, everything else will fall into place. Ads can be relevant, ads can be useful content. The other thing to know about retail media, it is very profitable. For the retailers, it's extremely profitable with super high margins. But the reason why it works so well is the brands and the return on investment for brands is significant. So depending on the brand, depending on the campaign, and depending on the vertical, we're seeing ROAS, return on ad spends, of upwards of 250% and even as high as 600%. But it's about balance, right? So for retailers, it becomes this kind of push and pull between how to think and how to operate. And it's important for the brands to consider this as well, because as a brand, you want to make sure your retailer's thinking of themselves both as a retailer and as a publisher. Otherwise, the system kind of gets out of balance and the program's not going to be as strong. Because as a retailer, they're obsessed with growing everything you would as a retailer. Store traffic, site traffic, their loyalty programs, growing their customer base, pricing, promotion. They're thinking purely from a retailer's point of view. And we hear CEOs saying, oh, we need to get into retail media. Of course we need to get into retail media. Let's do it. But wait, we don't want to show any ads to customers. Well, the truth is, people don't want to see ads the way that they've been done in the past. What we want to make sure that we do is we rethink about how ads are shown. But then, if they go the other way, and they start to think themselves as a fully media publisher, then they're just thinking about sellable impressions, viewability, reach, frequency, ad products, yield. And they're thinking that, well, hey, if I get 2 ads placed and we're making this much money, then if we put 4 ads in the same spot, then we're going to generate twice as much as revenue. Unfortunately, that works for the publisher. However, it doesn't really work for the retailer, and it certainly doesn't work for the consumer. So it's about finding that balance. And we need to find that balance point that kind of matches it. It also works for the customer and the brand at the same time. So for the brands in the audience, this is probably the key point. And I'll be driving the retailers that you partner with to make sure that they find this kind of unique balance. And then I suppose retailers get into the trap of looking at what other retailers are doing in the system. So, they look at Walmart and they go, yeah, we want to have what these guys have been doing. But what we've got to realise is Walmart's been building their retail media business for nearly over 18 years, and you can't expect to do that day one. So retail media falls into a natural progression, and yes, as a brand, you want to be driving your retail partners to do more and more, but it is a natural progression. So phase one of that is, it's pretty basic, It's get some basic ad serving up and running, some on-site media, and get started quickly. We want to move between phase 1 and 2 pretty quickly and start having dynamic ad serving, new placements, and then potentially look at off-site and potentially start introducing data into the equation. Think about identity and where it plays a role. And then as we jump in the steps from phase 2 to 3, it's probably the biggest jump and the biggest hurdle, because this is where we're starting to look at multi-channel and how we're going to do multi-touch attribution and joining all these things together. You've got to start getting more sophisticated in your measurement and more sophisticated in your reporting. And so in addition to that, we're going to start looking at things like email, social channels, and other native types of placements. You're also thinking about resourcing and weighing up the decision between, do we outsource some of this work and augment it, or do we build this capability in-house? And then it's finally working out what is our long-term vision. And then finally, as we work into phase 4, you're now looking at even more sophistication with data products like Cleanroom and other advanced products, and additional media placements, and looking at potential in-store opportunities as well. And you can get there, but it must start with a good vision and undertake this in a phased approach. As I said, it's a natural progression. So, as I mentioned before, the right technology is important in unlocking all this and enabling the brand demand and drive this transformation. So getting from phase 1 all the way to phase 4 requires that we have a right technology, and we move from the left to the green and the right. And that is, things like unified identity, having self-service capabilities, having a level of transparency with the technology that's using, and having something that's customizable and that's inherently ownable and that can be yours. And also working with your partner that is going to work with you. So you want to be able to influence their roadmap and determine, what ultimately you need and what's right for you and your business. And then from a brand's perspective, you want your retail partner to be thinking this way, because it's going to be what enables you and create the best programs for you to participate and succeed in. So let's talk about digital identity. As I mentioned before, it's extremely important, and you need to start thinking about it from the beginning. But first, we need to understand what digital identity actually is. If you think about everything that you're doing digitally, there's multiple touch points. There's your social channels, there's your shopping channels, there's your browser channels in history. Everything you're doing on all your different devices, you're doing it all online. But by connecting that identity into a real media platform is going to be the key for retail media, so that you can look at marketing at an individual level or a personal level as opposed to a cookie level, which we all know are going away. And this area that the retailers really struggle with is that if you think about one person, on average they have 3.5 devices, 19 cookies. They've probably got 3 or more emails. So it's like trying to hit a moving target that's continuously moving. And so the important thing is being able to tie all this together and have the resolution of one identity, that all the devices, all the emails, all the information, everything in that person is tied into one person. And you're looking at a marketing at a person level as opposed to a device level. And the right technology is critical to solve this again. So if you're thinking about somebody like Ben here, you look at all the different touch points that he has. He has, a Facebook ID. He has a mobile ID. He has, all different type, offline addresses, online addresses, cookies, browser history, etc. And we need to tie that into a universal ID. And being able to understand and communicate Ben as a person across all these devices will provide Ben, ultimately, a better shopping experience. So, strategy for success. So what does the strategies for success look like for brands and customers and for retailers? As I talked about before, it's about kind of meeting the needs of all three actors in this ecosystem. It must meet the needs of the customer, must meet the needs of the retailer, and definitely meet the needs of the advertiser. If it doesn't, the whole thing falls apart again. So as a retailer, you're thinking, how can I drive incremental revenue? How can I offset my high costs of e-commerce? How can I drive and become a revenue centre for the business rather than being seen as a cost centre? For the customer, I'm thinking, how can I find the best deals? How can I get the best recommendations? When I'm doing a search, I want the things to show up at the top of the search page that are the most relevant for me. I want to be able to, actively discover new products and ultimately drive a better shopping experience. And then finally, for the advertiser, for you as brands, you want to understand what offline impact is to your media spend. So this isn't just, purely online. It has an offline component too. You want to be able to tie that identity together. You're thinking about how you can drive conversion. You're thinking about driving sales and how can you drive on and return on ad spend. If, as the advertiser, you're getting significant return and spend on your campaign, it's likely the customer is as well because it's relevant and they're proving it by reacting and clicking on it and making the purchase. And then this obviously always falls into place for the retailer as well. So you see the success for all three. And then foundations for success for retailers. If you think about it from a retailer performance point of view, we need to choose the right tech partner. That's critical. You want to provide the right level of media assets on your site and again, evolve them over time. You want to provide the right positions and assets, especially something out of the gate that's going to kind of give significant enough to get brands excited and be successful. You need to make sure there's a good onboarding process, not only for your organisation, but also for your brand partners as well. And that you can demonstrate to brands very early and very quickly how this is going to work and get some good case studies under your belt and prove that it's working. That's what brands are looking for. They're looking for that proof. You don't need to do everything at once. In fact, doing everything at once is probably a recipe for disaster in our experience. And then over the first 6 to 12 months, just know that you're going to have to be doing a lot of education. That's both internally with the retailer organisation, but it's also with the brands. They're going to be asking, well, we're spending, investing, and giving trade funds. Why are we, having to give incremental brand dollars to the retailer as well? So there's going to be that level of education. And we're also going to have to educate the agency community as well. They need to understand what benefit it is for the brands and how they should participate. So if you look at this particular case study, just going to grab a drink. This was a challenger brand for a soft drink. And we trialled it over a period of 100 days. And the goals was to lift, increase sales uplift, influence online and in-store purchasing, and improve the click-through rate and product position. You can see the results. The ad ROAS was over 1,000%, which is a fantastic return on ad spend. The conversion rate of the sponsored product ads was 72%, and we got just shy of 1 million impressions. Sales were 2.2 million over that 100 days, and that was 22% higher than the previous period. So, key takeaways. What are the key takeaways? So retail media, it's causing a shift in the brand and retailer relationship. So it's gone from being a transactional relationship and become more strategic. So now you as brands, you're working in concert with the retailers to come up with placements, come up with ideas, and come up with areas for you both to succeed in. Two, we're still seeing retailers cobbling together all these different point solutions to stand up their retail media business, and it's causing friction. We still run into retailers that have 3 or 4 different technology platforms to power their retail media business, and it's fracturing. It means that the brands are having a hard time figuring out, where they should be spending their money, and because of this, they're spending less, and because of that, there's too much friction in the environment. However, when it is done right, brands are finally able to do performance marketing, whereas in the past, performance marketing was limited to direct response partners or direct response brands. Now it's really for everybody, for Nestle, Unilever, anybody. They can measure, and the performance is completely measurable, and it's here to stay. So right now it's projected a $50 billion business for retail media across the globe, so it's exciting and growing times. Now, normally try to do these sessions, we try to just keep them educational and don't bombard you with sales speak, but we'll talk a little bit about who we are. CitrusAd and Epsilon are part of the Publicis Group. We sit at the centre of Publicis e-commerce and commerce services. We work now with over 140 retailers globally, including a number of those here in India. We operate in more than 30 countries, and we drive technology on services to make your business thrive. So please come and talk to the team. I'm here, Kushal's here, Gurleen's here, and Indrana's here as well. So please find us, chat to us, and look forward to the rest of the sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. And I do see that we do have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to quickly check if we have questions from the audience. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Well, if not, because the team is still around, so any queries, you can always connect with the team as well offline. But in case any further questions, then please do raise your hands. We'll have the mics passed on to you. All right. So well then, on that note,
we're obviously
very
clear.
Very clear, absolutely. Crystal clear indeed. But before I say my thanks, we're going to hand this over to you, John. Thank you so much.